Hello ladies and gents, in this video we will talk about Styling UI5 Controls. For that we have two options basically. First being using some predefined CSS classes that are provided to us by SAP, and second one is creating our custom CSS files. Now we will start by using some predefined classes to create some margin between our input field here and our button. So let's get started. For that purpose, we are going to add a margin class to our input control here. And all controls have a property named class, which comes from the managed object superclass that we explored in the previous video. And the predefined classes from SAP UI5 all begin by SAP UI. And next word will specify the size of the margin, and we have four options here. First one is tiny, which will add 8 pixels of margin. Next one is small, which will add 16 pixels. Next medium, which will add 32. And lastly we have large for 48 pixels of margin. Since 8 pixels would be enough for us, I will go with tiny here. And then we say margin. Now if we leave it like this margin is going to be applied all around our control. So let's save it and check our application. We can already see the margin. I will inspect our input control. Now this is not the UI5 input. This is just an HTML input which is used by UI5. So this is actually our input control, and we can see if we scroll all the way down that we see 8 pixels of margin all around our control. Now for sided margins we have again four options. We can have top, bottom, or begin, or end. Now top and bottom speak for themselves, and begin for the left to right languages is going to be placed at the left side, and for the RTL languages, right to left languages, it will be placed at the right, and end is the opposite. And since we want it to the right of our input, we are going to go with end here. Let's save it and check. And we can see the margin is only on the right side. Now for two-sided margins we also have two more classes. We have top bottom for top and bottom, and we also have begin end. Oops, with a capital N like this, actually like this, but we just need it at the end for now, so I leave it like this. And next what we can do is create a little space between our two controls here, input and button, and our list. So let's go back and use another predefined class for our list here. This time I want a little bit more space, so I will go with SAP UI small instead of tiny, margin, and I just want it at the top of my list. And if we go back, we can see the margin. Let's check. Let's find our list control right here. We can see the margin is 16 pixels, which is the value for small margin. And next set of predefined classes that are provided to us by SAP are the padding classes. And here we have a page control, as you know, and it would look better with a little bit of padding for all the contents of our page. So let's also use one. We go here to our page and add a class property to it. We again begin by SAP UI, and then we add a responsive padding. So the name of the class is responsive content padding. We save it and let's see what we have. We can already see some padding. Let's find our page control right here, and we scroll all the way down. Now let's see how the responsive content padding behaves. Here we see that for top and bottom we have 16 pixels, for begin and end we have 32 pixels, but since it's responsive, let's see how it changes with smaller screen sizes. Right here, somewhere here, we can see that the top and bottom stays the same, but begin and end is 16 instead of 32 now. And if we go smaller and smaller, it's again going to adapt, and when we go below 600 pixel right here, you see that all padding is removed, so we have no padding at all. So basically these margin and padding classes are the predefined classes that are provided to us by SAP. We have a few more options we don't need right now, but let's go and check the documentation. We have explored the all-around margins, single-sided, two-sided, and the one we didn't talk about is the responsive margins. So if we scroll down, the class name for that is SAP UI responsive margin, and it provides a 16 pixel margin only at the bottom of any control for small screens, which is less than 600 pixels, especially for smartphones. And it's really useful for lists like this. And for medium-sized screens, which is between 600 and 1023 pixels, it's going to display again a 16 pixel of margin, but all around our control, like displayed here. And lastly, for larger screens, it's going to display 16 pixels for top and bottom, and 32 pixel for begin and end. And one very important thing to mention with the padding classes, let's also check that. Again, here we have three options. SAP UI no content padding removes any default padding. SAP UI content padding will display 16 pixels of padding, and the one we used, responsive content padding, we've already seen how that works. Now the important thing to keep in mind is only these controls support padding CSS classes. Unlike the margin classes that we can use for all controls, these are the only ones that we can use the padding classes. Now let's go back to our application and implement the second option, which is creating our custom CSS. For that, I will use that CSS file to make this list header a little bit smaller, because I don't like the fact that it looks bigger than our application title here. And let's begin by creating a custom CSS file. We created inside our web app folder, inside a folder named CSS, the name is up to us, and then a file named style.css, also up to us. And first we have to make our application aware of this style.css file, so it's loaded along with our application. And for that we go to our manifest.json file, and under sap.ui5, after models here we say resources, and we have two types of resources, CSS or JS. We say CSS, and it's an array of objects, and the only attribute we need is the URL to our CSS file, which is inside the CSS folder and then named style.css. We save it. Now let's see how we can apply some custom styling to this list header here. So I select it, and I can see our list control here, and I can see that the actual header is inside a header tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create and assign a custom CSS class to our list, which will affect this direct child header. So let's create it, and I will name it list with smaller title, and I want it to be applied to the direct header child. And let's check the default size, and here we can see the font size is 1.25 RAM. So let's make it 1 RAM instead. Let's save and copy this class name and add it to our list. We already have an existing one and we just add the new one with a space. Save. Go back and we can see that it's smaller, but let's be sure. Select the header and we see that the default one has been overridden by our custom one, which is now 1 rem. Now this works, but this approach has one big problem. If our application is running along with other applications in an environment, for example Fiori Launchpad or SAP Cloud, if any other application has this class name as well, it's going to clash with that application. So we have to make sure that our custom classes affect only the controls inside our application. And for that we create a unique namespace for our application, a class basically, and assign it to our whole application. So for our app control here, let's create a new class and let's say my products list. And we are going to use this for every custom CSS class we have and add it like this. So this styling will be applied only to controls that are inside our application. We go back and everything still works as expected. That would be all for this video and I hope to see you in the next one.